Welcome back to the Premier League show. Great to have you with us this evening. Former England goalkeeper Rob Green is our guest tonight, and we're now going to focus on yet more change at Manchester United. Let's head to Manchester now. Our reporter Dan Khan is there for us this evening. Hello to you, Dan. Let's get the very latest then on United's search for an interim head coach. Where are we with it?
Yeah, evening, Julian. I mean, the search continues, I think, is probably the best way to update everyone who is interested. We reported earlier this week that United held informal talks with the likes of Michael Carrick, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as well, and we expect those talks to continue throughout the week and into the weekend, with the club hoping to potentially get an interim head coach appointed before next weekend's Manchester derby. Now, we were unsure of what form talking to two of those former coaches, and in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's case, manager at Manchester United, whether Carrick could come back under Solskjaer, but as we understand it, that looks increasingly unlikely to happen. In United's view, they view both Carrick and Solskjaer as number ones in terms of interim head coach appointments. So that's where we're at. I wouldn't rule out someone like Ruud van Nistelrooy as well. He's also an option, the former Manchester United interim head coach and Leicester boss, of course, as well. They saw what he was able to do before they appointed Ruben Amorim, and he really led the club, I think, quite admirably in that spell. All three names are still available to United, and I think three options that they'll continue to explore when they've explored those conversations. So look, still talks to happen, but I think they're very happy with Darren Fletcher to take the team against Brighton in the FA Cup tie on Sunday.
There are a couple of points off the Champions League places, but it's so competitive, congested behind them in the Premier League table, Dan. This feels like a pivotal time in the season. Big games on the horizon. They'll want to wrap this search up pretty swiftly, won't they?
Yeah, absolutely, Julian. I mean, I've heard people talk about, they need to get this appointment to save the season, but there's still so much to play for, isn't there? With 6 months left, and I've been at Old Trafford so much in the last month talking about how United are within touching distance of a Champions League place, but then they've had draws against the likes of West Ham, Wolves, even Leeds. They could have maybe performed a little bit better. Then the draw against Burnley last night. I mean, I think we've talked all day about the points they've dropped against the bottom half sides. But what I would say is, although they have struggled to win, you also now have to look below them, because they're just 3 points from 12th as well. And when you look at the fixtures to come, the Manchester derby next weekend, Arsenal, also tough games against the likes of Fulham. West Ham isn't too far away as well. So look, it's a real interesting and important time for Manchester United, and that's why I don't think they're rushing this interim head coach appointment, because they need to get it right with so much football left to play this season.
Dan Khan, live in Manchester, thanks very much indeed. Rob, let's get your thoughts on this. In their hour of need, Manchester United often call for a club legend to step in. They've done it 4 times before. It's the 5th time they've done it with Darren Fletcher this time. Is it the right way to go for you?
I think getting someone from in-house immediately, getting the then interim from exterior seems like a right idea. You'd have thought they'd have it done already, or by the time Amorim would have been sacked, and you're just wondering why it's going to take so long, and you're wondering whether the way that Amorim got sacked, whether that's a stumbling block, and also whether someone like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer would say, well, I want some sort of guarantee of getting the job full-time again if I do really well in this period of time. So it's not a straightforward negotiation in there.
What about Solskjaer returning back at the wheel? Gary Neville said it'd be like Groundhog Day. He's not in favour. Does a return make sense to you?
I think if you could get him in for that short period without the guarantee of it being long-term, yes. Because you look at how he got the team playing when he first took over on that interim period, and they went on a wonderful run of winning games and unbeaten in nearly 20 games, I think it was, when he took over. You can repeat that. If that's Groundhog Day, then that would be brilliant for Manchester United.
Also worth remembering, though, is when he was winning his first 8 games as interim boss, he took charge permanently. He got to a European final. He finished 2nd and 3rd in the Premier League, which they take right now. And his side averaged nearly 2 goals a game, had a goal difference of plus 125, better than anyone else since Sir Alex. Do you think maybe because of the way it ended, we forget, we misremember what Solskjaer did?
And he managed to change the dressing room, brought the dressing room back in. You remember beating them, winning at Paris Saint-Germain, I think it was, and he walked into the dressing room and the players were cheering his name. And that's a huge thing. You feel like that if he could replicate that, then they're on to a winner. I think that conversation with Jason Wilcox is key. It's just such a big thing, and the way that they got rid of Amorim and the manner in how it came about is going to be really, really difficult one to then, eggshells that are already broken, really, that you're walking over again.
And whoever comes in and sort of keeps the seat warm till the summer, when it sounds like they'll have more options with managers out of contract, possibly managers who've been at the World Cup and leave their jobs. Who would be, for you, the ideal choice in the summer for Manchester United?
Well, it is, the obvious one would scream Thomas Tuchel. He's been there if they're in the Champions League, and I think that's a key thing. You're then saying, this is the dynamic, isn't it? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, for example, would say, well, if I get the club into the Champions League, you need to give me the job full time, but then you're negotiating with the new manager who wants to be in the Champions League or only can be in the Champions League. So I think there's a couple of really horrible situations where it's a difficult scenario for Manchester United now. Thomas Tuchel, I think, would be brilliant there. He does tend to fall out with the owners and the directors above every other club he's been at. So, really tough.
Yeah, and given that, Ruben Amorim wasn't happy being a head coach. He wanted more control. He wanted to be a manager. So, from what you just said there, would Tuchel be willing to conform, to take a job when he's not the one calling all of the shots?
Probably when he's taken the contract, yes. Yeah, and then after that. But you've just thrown another quandary into the mix, Jules. So, it's a really, really tough scenario.
Rob, thanks for now.
Is Benjamin Sesko the biggest winner of Ruben Amorim leaving Manchester United? 2 goals against Burnley, and probably the best he's looked in a United shirt. Is it down simply to United actually getting him the ball? Have a listen to this.
I sat down with him yesterday and showed him videos of his movement, as you said, and how the opportunities are going to come. He has to just keep believing, keep making the runs. The rest of the team have to look for him more as well. And like with all strikers, once you get that first goal, you hit the back of the net, it builds your confidence, and hopefully they start flooding in from now.
Sesko has been a willing runner all season. These are Premier League strikers' runs challenging the opposition back line. Now that essentially means off-ball runs in behind. Very important for a striker. He has made 123 of them this season, but his teammates just haven't been trying to feed him the ball. Before this midweek round of games, of those 123, his teammates had only tried to get him the ball just over 30% of the time. And in contrast, you look at players at the top of the list like Jørgen Strand Larsen, Ollie Watkins there with 277 runs. When they make a movement, teammates are instructed to target them with the ball. So let's have a look at what this looks like in practice. We can show you a couple of different examples from games this season. First, against Leeds. Watch out for Sesko. He's at the top of the picture over there. Can this ball from Lenny Yoro here be flipped in behind? There's a double movement. Sesko can get in behind, but Manchester United refuse the pass. Interesting one here against Wolves as well. This one comes from transition. Very similar to one last night against Burnley as well. United come away with the ball. There's Sesko in the right-hand side. Can they get him in 1v1? Again, they refuse the pass. So let's have a look at this game week and a real change. Benjamin Sesko made 15 runs in behind against Burnley, and he was targeted 53.3% of the time. That's a massive jump, you have to say, up from just over 30% pre this game week, all the way up to 53.3%. United targeting him with the ball. So let's have a look at the examples from last night where United made different decisions on the ball. First one, the ball comes free to Bruno Fernandes in here. United turn it over. His first thought, can you find Sesko over the top? He tries it, difficult ball, doesn't come off, but the intent is there. The next opportunity comes from Patrick Dorgu. Again, Sesko on his bike immediately. Dorgu tries to find him, unsuccessful, but again, the intent is there. And this one I love. Here's Sesko on his own goal line here. He's off, keep your eye on him. He's off, he's going. And by the way, he clocked 9.5 metres per second here. He's still going. And that equates to basically you're running the 100 metres in around 11 seconds. That is rapid. And if we have a look at our heat maps here as well, first 20 games, a little bit of penalty box action here. But he's trying to drop deep. He's trying to get involved in the play. Here against Burnley, much more concentrated in the opposition penalty. Fletcher says, get in the box, be my striker. So, Rob, was this what he needed? Did he need a different approach? And did he get the payoff last night?
Yeah, it's interesting. You touched on it there about, and Darren Fletcher touched on it, saying about making his runs. he's a better player facing the goal. And I think under Amorim, it's about control. It's about keeping the ball. And you saw him there making those runs when the players, they're looking for feet. They're looking for the angles into him, into his feet, rather than an angled run away or a run into that space. So it's utilising your better players in the best way that they are utilised, and they can be utilised. And I think you sign him, you look at how you want to utilise him, and they've gone away from that. And it's interesting now, and then you look at someone like Rasmus Højlund, who was having to make a lot of runs for the rest of the team away from the goal, when you're saying, just go and stand in front of the goal, be selfish. So it's not a dissimilar thing for a very similar position. So it's a recurring theme for Manchester United.
Really interesting, that. Rob, Dave, thanks very much indeed. Right, we'll move on.
Welcome back to the Transfer Show. We've got a quick line to bring you from Sky in Italy. Tottenham defender Radu Dragushin is Roma's first-choice centre-back target. Spurs are aware of the Serie A interest in Dragushin, but are yet to make a decision about letting him go on loan in January. We will be hearing from his manager, Thomas Frank, shortly. But let's take a look at Manchester United now. Darren Fletcher remains in charge as interim head coach. So with all the managerial turmoil, will they be able to do any business this month? Busy in the window? Let's head back to Manchester to talk to Dan Khan. Dan, before we get to transfers, give us an update on the latest in their search for an interim manager.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. I mean, we've reported all week that United have had informal talks with the likes of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Michael Carrick, who seem to be leading in terms of United's search for an interim head coach. They're going to progress those talks, I think, throughout the week. But I think what we've clarified today is there have been a lot of question marks over whether we could see those two reunited in a coaching staff together, like they were during Solskjaer's last period at the club. But what we have been reporting throughout the day, especially by my colleague Rob Dorset, is that is looking increasingly unlikely that you would see again maybe an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Michael Carrick as a number two. Manchester United, by their assessment this week, see both as potential number one options in this interim head coach role. So we'll have to see where that leads. We're not expecting at this point it to be appointed before the Brighton FA Cup tie on Sunday. Of course, things could change, but I think United are quite comfortable with Darren Fletcher leading the team after the last few days in terms of his media duties and the match last night. So look, we'll wait and see, but looking at an appointment definitely ahead of Manchester Derby if United can get their search right.
Yeah, Dan, what does all of this mean for United's transfer policy in this window then?
Yeah, look, I think you saw by Manchester United that they were willing to spend in this window if a long-term target became available. We saw that with their interest in Antoine Semenyo, but they weren't going to compromise a long-term strategy in terms of them wanting to reinforce, say, the midfield in the summer. That is their target. I think in terms of sales, they're pretty comfortable with the squad they have at this point, no matter who the manager or head coach is. I think for now, we're not expecting too much business by Manchester United in this window, and I'd be very surprised if that changes by deadline day at the end of January, or beginning of February, I should say.
Thanks very much.
Regarding the search for Manchester United's interim manager, let's bring in our football correspondent, Rob Dorset. Rob, very good afternoon to you. You've got some fresh developments for us.
Yeah, significant developments. We've been telling you for the last couple of days that both Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Michael Carrick are at the forefront of Manchester United's search for an interim manager to take charge of the team for the remainder of the season. Well, I've been told today that it's now looking increasingly unlikely that the two will be asked to work together. Now, both former players remain at the forefront of Manchester United's plans. But it could now be a straight choice between the two of them to see which man will take charge of the team for the 17 remaining Premier League matches and, of course, any further FA Cup games that Manchester United get beyond that tie against Brighton on Sunday. On assessment, it seems that United's bosses have decided that both Carrick and Solskjaer work best as a number one. And so it could be a choice straight between the two of them. Now, they've been impressed with the current interim, Darren Fletcher, both in the way he's carried himself around Carrington's training ground, how he's interacted with the media, and crucially, how he's built up a rapport very quickly with the Manchester United players, many of those he already knows, of course. So that's bought them a bit of time, I think, especially for Jason Wilcox, the director of football. And now I don't expect an appointment of the interim manager until the end of the season. I don't expect that decision to be made before Sunday's game against Brighton. I think United will be patient. They want to make sure that they get the right man in place. They know they've still got an awful lot to play for, with the chance of European, maybe even Champions League football at stake. And so discussions will continue over the coming days, and there's no urgency around those conversations. I should also add that Ruud van Nistelrooy is still in the mix to potentially be Manchester United's interim manager for the rest of the season. Not a lot of people have discussed him. That's because United don't really feel the need to talk to him too much at the moment. The current regime know him very, very well. He was assistant to Erik ten Hag, then became interim manager when ten Hag was sacked in October 2024, had 4 games in charge under them. And so they know him pretty well, whereas with Solskjaer and Carrick, they feel Jason Wilcox has an awful lot more to learn about how they would approach the job and the sort of way they would work. So expect those conversations to happen over the coming days. Both men, Carrick and Solskjaer, have had some personal commitments which have meant those talks have been delayed a little bit. But as I say, Manchester United in no rush. They want to make sure they've got a new man in place in time for the Manchester.
Martí, que si no está es por motivos de fuerza mayor, así que todo el ánimo para él, un abrazo grande y veremos si su Rayo le puede dar hoy una alegría.
En troncos de Sergio García junto a Verdú, cuando ya se cogen esas cartas secretas. A turno de Aitor Vives, encara Aitor, arriba. Desviado el remate de Aitor Vives, la llega a tocar Paul Lechuga.
Días en los que quizá podrían haber tenido mejor resultado, los porteros han estado ahí.
Viene el balón para Manu. ¡Oh! Precisamente un portero es quien le da el primer gol a Troncos. ¡Gol! En la frontal del área decide combinar sobre la figura de Paul Lechuga. Vértice del área, probará con el regate. No, la cambia entera. ¡Qué balón de Lechuga para Alegre! ¡Oh! ¡Para adentro! ¡Gol! Pues espérate porque viene Fraile a esta línea de fondo, la pone Fraile, el balón para Poc, que recorta delante de Ferres. Poc, ¡oh! ¡Qué parada abajo! De Manu Martín, lo hizo de fábula.
Han señalado cesión.
Libre en directo, eso es.
Sí, libre en directo.
Ojo que la pone rápido en movimiento, los Troncos para adentro. Sergio. ¡Gol! Vamos al penalti, presidente. Lo tirará en paralelo a la portería Perchita. Perchita ante Lechuga. Le pega Perchita. ¡Lo ha parado! Con suspense, con incertidumbre, pero acabó sacando finalmente. Pues venga, todo tuyo. Ahí está, algo bajito, capo. Verdú. Contacto con la pelota en el carril central, abre precisamente para Vives. El centro acaba siendo portería porque evitaron que el pase de la muerte pudiese llegar. Pero si eres de Barcelona y quieres vivir la emoción de la última jornada en el Cupra Arena de tanto la Kings League Infojobs como de la Queens League, puedes entrar también en el centro y el remate. Ahora te lo cuento porque es un golazo. ¡Gol! Frankie Purtí, irá Frankie para darle la vuelta al Rayo. Frankie lo ha parado. Lo ha parado Manu Martín. En la porfía con Ian, en todo caso no se aplica nada y viene el ataque ahora de los Troncos. ¡Lechuga! Román Alegre está bien, gol doble.
Gol doble para Rayo.
Sí. El capitán de los Troncos combina con Vives. Lechuga. Era muy difícil porque le botó justo en el momento. Un penalti shot-out. Tanto sonoras como lumínicas del Cupra Arena. Sorroche para el tercero. Lechuga. Decide combinar sobre Paul Román. Aparece Román Alegre que filtra el envío. El remate para adentro. ¡Gol de oro! ¡Cántalo! ¡Gol! ¡Gol! Del Rayo de Barcelona. Llegar y besar el santo Joel Paredes.
Frankie Purtí, Prime MVP, por fin ha llegado esa victoria tan esperada para el Rayo.
Sí, ha costado mucho. La verdad que aquí ganar cuesta muchísimo y hay que valorarlo mucho. Y Y como ha dicho el míster, al final hoy era un partido amistoso que encarábamos como preparación para el partido donde nos jugamos la vida, que es el partido de play-out del Mundial, y esperemos que esto nos sirva para encarar una buena dinámica y encarar ese partido de la mejor manera posible.
Hoy no ha podido estar el Presi, no sé si nos estará viendo desde casa y no sé si le quieres decir algo.
Yo creo que sí nos estará viendo. Le mando un fuerte abrazo. Esta semana ha sido una semana difícil para él y espero que le anime, tanto la victoria del femenino como la nuestra este fin de semana. Espero que le anime y que le ayude a pasar la semana de la mejor manera posible y decirle que le queremos mucho y que vamos a dar la vida para que el Rayo esté en el Mundial.
Ojalá que así sea. Enhorabuena. Gracias.